Hi, my name is Chris Husted. In 2003, I wrote an essay for a unique soundtrack album that presented two scores for the same film, Jules Dassin's Night in the City. Actually, I'm here to show you how these two films with the same name, the American and British versions of the film, differ radically not just in score but in characterization and meaning. They're both based on the same footage, with a couple of exceptions, but this footage is used very differently, each addressing its own national market. But first, let's look at how there came to be two versions of the film in the first place. Basically, post-war Britain's economy relied heavily on the American loans that made up the Marshall Plan, and needed to keep as much of the money as possible in England to stimulate economic recovery. This put the British government into conflict with Hollywood over how much American profit could be taken out of England. After very hostile exchanges and a boycott, they settled on an arrangement in which part of the studio's money would remain in England to be used in the production of new films, which used English personnel. This led to the creation of English subsidiaries for the Hollywood studios, such as 20th Century Fox Limited, which produced Night in the City, as you see it credited here. The British trade unions had achieved unprecedented strength at this time, and this extended to the creation of music for films. For various reasons, some of which are still a mystery, post-production on Night in the City proceeded on a unique track. The British version featured a score by British composer Benjamin Frankel. The other, for exhibition in other markets and referred to here as the American version, has a score by Franz Waxman. The difference between the two scores is extraordinary. Waxman's is much more dynamic. He uses a larger orchestra and coaxes many novel sounds from it. His style is romantic and melodramatic, with occasional jazz touches. There are several long stretches of music in his score, with especially generous attention paid to Harry's prolonged flight through the night in the film's final reels. Understandably, Frankel's score reflects the conventions of film scoring in England at the time. His music is not as melodramatic as Waxman's. He employs a smaller orchestra and often builds his music from very simple ideas that are repeated with slight modification in the manner of a mosaic. Frankel also scores less of the film than Waxman does. The contrast of the two composers' work is readily apparent from the beginning. Though the opening scene uses the same shots of Harry running through the night streets to Mary's apartment, the two scores are markedly different. Here's the opening of the film, first by Waxman, from the American version.
The city is London.
And here's the same scene by Frankel from the British version.
Night in the city. The night is tonight, tomorrow night, or any night. The city is London.
The British version is also longer and includes some characterization scenes that do not appear in the American version, such as the opening scene between Harry Fabian and Mary that you see here.
you been?
To London town to see the Queen. Good morning, Duchess.
3 days and nights with... No word from you.
I love you, Duchess. And if anybody says I love you just for your title, I'll
3
think...
days and nights.
Busy man in a busy town.
Thinking the most horrible thoughts. Seeing you lifeless in the gutter.
Oh, you should have caviar for breakfast.
Oh, hiding in some cellar, running for your
Running,
life.
me? Harry Fabian never runs from anybody.
Harry, you're not in trouble again, are you?
Trouble? Here, look at this. What do you see?
Why, it's a pill.
That's right, it's a pill. Now watch, Mary, watch. One pill. One pill the size of a baby's fingernail. Drop into the tank of your motor car, it triples your mileage. Fabian's Fuel Feed. A box of 12 for half a crown takes you 12 times around the town.
But where'd you get it?
Little Alf, the sixpenny chemist in Whitechapel. But does he know what he's got? No head for business. I'll just lock him away in an attic with his chemicals turning out pills by the ton.
You mean you want to back this?
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. From here on, Duchess, it's a life of ease and plenty for you. Now, all I need is 300 pounds to develop... But it's the biggest thing I've ever found, Mary.
No.
I've got it right here in the palm of my hand.
No.
For 300 quid, we can package 5,000 boxes. Sell them
No.
for half a crown. That's a profit of over
No!
100... You've got the money. You know you've got it. You've got it right here.
Yes, I've got it. Put it by shilling after shilling. But not for this. Not for mad get-rich-quick schemes.
Oh, look, Mary,
the
this
money's
pill...
there for the day you come to your senses. Settle down to, no matter what, a grocer's, a tobacco shop, anything done in the light of day.
Listen, Mary,
Harry, do you think I enjoy slaving night after night in a silver fox? Getting drunk's drunker? But I'm sticking it out. Waiting for the day we can marry, lead decent, normal lives.
I know,
That's what the
darling.
money's for, and until then, we don't touch one penny of it.
You don't understand, Mary. This is our big chance.
Big chance? Oh, again? Big chance, always a big chance. Last month, the Fabian Mail Order Company couldn't lose, but we lost 50 of the best. Before that, the Fabian Tourist Bureau, the Fabian Song Publishers. What wasn't I going to have? The Royal Suite on the Queen Mary, a house in Mayfair.
But this is different. It's a sure thing.
It's always different. Now the Fabian Fuel Feed, a fortune with every pill.
Yes, a fortune. 2 fortunes. That's what I want, and that's what I'll get. I'm through with mugs and spivs and dirt. One break, I'm out of the garbage cans for life. I'm in the higher brackets, a mister with a future. There he goes. They'll say that's Fabian, that's Harry Fabian. One break, I'm hot as a rocket, shooting diamonds for sparks.
Harry! Oh, Harry. Harry, darling.
I want to be somebody.
Oh, darling, darling. You're so unhappy. Always running, always in a sweat. Harry, remember them. Nice people.
The source music written by the two composers is also very different. Here's Frankel's take on what you would have heard in an American bar, including a banjo. Both men were active jazz performers and arrangers and had first-hand experience of the nightclub life suggested by the film. This was especially true for Frankel, who was active in London's jazz scene for many years. He composed everything you hear in the nightclub sequences except Mary's song, Here's to Champagne, which was written for the film by songwriter Noel Gay. The arrangements Frankel supplied are modest and often somewhat wan and pathetic. Waxman, in an interesting contrast, had no hand in the source music for the version he scored, It was left to arrangers at the Fox Music Department in Hollywood who created dance band arrangements in the customarily slick Hollywood style.
Uh-oh. I beg your pardon. Does this wallet belong to one of you gentlemen?
Why, no, it doesn't.
Good evening, Mr. Fabian.
Oh, good evening, Emile. Someone must have dropped this. Soon come running for it, no doubt.
Thank you, Mr. Fabian.
Happened to me once back in the States. Traveling from New York to San Francisco. Changed trains to Chicago, you know. Darn if I don't lose my wallet.
No.
It's an intriguing irony that Frankel and Waxman, who didn't know one another, had a great deal in common. Both were born in 1906. Frankel on January 31st in London, and Waxman on December 24th in Königshotta, Germany. Both were born into Jewish families who took their heritage very seriously, and both found their calling for music very early. Their formative years as musicians were spent studying classical music while they survived as jazz performers and arrangers. Their movement through the jazz culture led them to films, and each scored over 100 of them. Concert music became more and more a focus for them as they grew older. They worked roughly simultaneously on Night in the City, and neither knew what the other was doing. The middle of the film contains some significant differences, including several scenes that do not appear in the American version. Here is a scene of a hotel manager trying to collect a bill from Harry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fabian.
Good afternoon.
I am Mr. Hoskins, the manager of the Royal Tudor Hotel.
Oh, yes, Mr. Hoskins. I'm very glad you dropped in. I've been meaning to speak to you about
Indeed,
that,
I was rather under the impression that you've been deliberately avoiding me. My secretary has tried to reach you 7 times on the telephone.
Oh, well, that's very easy to
I
explain.
must
Mr.
confess I
Hoskins.
find this whole situation a trifle bizarre. In some
Well, it's
peculiar
really
manner.
very simple, Mr.
Please have the
Hoskins.
courtesy to hear me out, sir. Now, I do not quite understand how you managed it. I suppose I never shall. But you have succeeded in obtaining from my inefficient staff 2 suites. 2, mark you. For yourself, for Mr. Gregorius, and for an individual who seems to bear no name other than Nicholas.
Oh, yes. Well, you
You've
see, my
occupied
son.
these rooms for 3 weeks now. And to date, not 1 penny piece has been paid.
Well, you see, Mr. Hoskins,
You will
my
settle this
solicitor-
bill, Mr. Fabian, for £287, 6 and threepence, in its entirety and in cash. Or else I shall be forced to turn you and your associates out of your rooms at once. And then I shall proceed to...
Turn me out. Why, you measly 8 quid a week bookkeeper, do you know who I just threw out of here? Do you know who I am?
Yes. You are a cheap spiv.
Please, sir, listen. I haven't got a penny, I'll admit it. But I did all this on 50 quid, and look what I've done. Just look at this gym. You'll get your money, every penny of it. All my life, Mr. Hoskins, I've fought and I've waited for a chance to be somebody. And now I'm almost there. I'm doing it. But if you throw us out of the hotel, I'll lose my partner. I'll lose everything. Please, sir, I beg you. Just give me this one break, and I promise you on my life...
Mr. Fabian, I am not one of my inefficient staff. Unless that money is paid into my office today, I shall impound your belongings, and Mr. Gregorius's. I shall then inform the police, and I rather fancy you'll find yourself in slightly less comfortable quarters. Good day.
Here's a quick shot of Harry and Helen kissing.
Give me a minute to get inside, and then go and get his 200 quid. Meet me tomorrow before lunch outside Bag Rags. Bring me the 350. That leaves 50 for you to start your little wrestling stunt.
How's your relay, dearie?
How many times have I told you not to eat down here? You drop that swill and it brings mice. Clean it up and get out.
Yes, my love.
Still up, Pip?
Come here.
In the American version, Nosseros just seems to be looking pensively out the window.
Oh, in the morning, Pip. Didn't we do well tonight, though? Oh,
No.
And here's another scene with the solicitor, Mr. Chilk, who inadvertently warns Mary that Harry Fabian is in trouble. This scene is important because it explains how Mary knows to go to the docks at the end, which is an almost unexplained coincidence in the American version.
Mind if I invite myself? No, please do. Service for two.
I beg your pardon. I was told I might find Mr. Fabian here.
May I ask who you are?
My name, sir, is Fergus Chilk.
What do you want with Mr. Fabian?
I am employed by Mr. Christo, who urgently wants to see him.
He's not here.
Do you mind if I look in the other room?
We certainly do mind. Get out of here now. Get out of here. I'll call the police.
Oh, please forgive Mr. Yosh. In his anxiety to find Mr. Fabian, he forgets his manners. The gentleman says that Mr. Fabian is not here, so obviously he is not. Here's my card, sir. You can reach me here. If he should turn up, you will greatly oblige Mr. Christo if you will let us know at once.
I will not let you know. I don't care to oblige you or Mr. Christo.
Perhaps you would, if there was £1,000 in it for you.
What do you mean?
Again, Mr. Yosh is too enthusiastic. I apologize for disturbing you. Thank you. Good night.
Adam, what does it mean?
It means we've got to find Harry before they do. He must be in terrible trouble. Now, quick, Mary, think. Think. Where can he be? Where can he be?
He might be in 100 places. Bag Rags, Cooley's Cellar, Guggen's, the Penny Bluff, Figley's, the Blind Horse.
Between the two of us, we'll try them all. Come on. I'll just get my coat.
There's a curious tension between the two composers' conception of this film in relation to film noir style. Night in the City is justly famous for its excellent use of location shooting, which gives it an air of gritty realism. Films noir made at Fox settled into a tradition of semi-documentary realism after the studio's early success with The House on 92nd Street, and most make sparing use of background music, if they use any at all. Dassin's previous film for Fox, Thieves' Highway, is unscored except for credits and the end title. But Night in the City leans from the middle in both directions at once. Waxman offers a very elaborate, melodramatic score, sometimes in generous amounts, while Frankel offers simpler music and less of it, sometimes leaving utterly unscored scenes Waxman scores lavishly. The best example comes in the two composers' treatment of Harry's final flight. Waxman creates several long stretches of music that evoke Harry's hysterical agitation. Frankel, on the other hand, leaves much of this part of the film unscored. The sequence in the shot tower demonstrates the extraordinary difference this makes.
Look in the shot tower!
It's a natural temptation to ask which score is better, or which version of the film is better, but I would suggest that to do so would miss the point entirely. Though both versions were created from almost identical material, they're edited very differently and frequently use different portions of the scenes they have in common, and some scenes are missing from one or the other entirely. The divergence is very significant in many cases, and is exacerbated by the scores, which are themselves wildly different from one another. One was constructed in Los Angeles, the other in London, and they reflect distinct styles of filmmaking. This is what makes Night in the City a unique opportunity for audiences to appreciate the nuances of storytelling and the challenges artists face in practicing their art. We might be urged to accept only the American version of the film because it is closer to Dasson's intentions, but this would be misleading. The American version survives as a record of those intentions Dasson was able to assert in making the film. The British version may not reflect what he would have done, but it does reflect what the British did with it. We have the most to gain by appreciating both versions for what they are and what they attempt to accomplish.
You rat! You double-crosser, you Judas!
Larry, go back!
Turn me in! Cut my throat for 1,000 quid!
Go back, Harry, I'll get him!
The end of the American version is actually more cynical, despite Hollywood's reputation for rampant romanticism.
Give her the blood money she cut my throat for you! Pay her the devil back!
Christo stands on the Hammersmith Bridge, observing his Pyrrhic victory impassively. He's lost his father, something his victory over Fabian cannot reverse, and he's reasserted his leadership of the underworld, which will go on just as it had before. And here's what Frankel did in the British version. Ironically, it's the British version which chooses the romantic view of the aftermath of Harry's demise. Max Green's photography, in which Adam and Mary are expressionistically bathed in redeeming light, mingles with Frankel's grand gesture to create a completely different finale from the American version.